shaking the not uselessly stolen knife, falling from slippery ledges, clutching at whatever was there, sometimes crawling on his knees, he strained towards the posts. He now vanished in total darkness, now was suddenly illumined by a tremulous light. Having made his way to the posts, already up to his ankles in water, he tore off his heavy water-soaked talith, remaining just in his shirt, and clung to Yeshua's feet. He cut the ropes on his shins, stepped up on the lower crossbar, embraced Yeshua and freed his arms from the upper bonds. The naked, wet body of Yeshua collapsed on Levi and brought him to the ground. Levi wanted to heave it on to his shoulders straight away, but some thought stopped him. He left the body with its thrown-back head and outspread arms on the ground in the water, and ran, his feet slithering apart in the clayey mire, to the other posts. He cut the ropes on them as well, and the two bodies collapsed on the ground. Several minutes passed, and all that remained on the top of the hill was these two bodies and the three empty posts. Water beat on the bodies and rolled them over. By that time both Levi and the body of Yeshua were gone from the hilltop. Chapter 17. An Unquiet Day. On Friday morning, that is, the day after the accursed S-ants, all the available staff of the Variety, the bookkeeper Vasily Stepanovich Lastikin, 2 accountants, 3 typists, both box office girls, the messengers, ushers, cleaning women, in short, all those available, were not at their places doing their jobs, but were all sitting on the windowsills looking out on Sadovaya and watching what was going on by the wall of the Variety. By this wall a queue of many thousands clung in 2 rows, its tail reaching to Kudrinskaya Square. At the head of the line stood some 24 scalpers well known to theatrical Moscow. The line behaved with much agitation, attracting the notice of the citizens streaming past, and was occupied with the discussion of inflammatory tales about yesterday's unprecedented ascents of black magic. These same tales caused the greatest consternation in the bookkeeper Vasily Stepanovich, who had not been present at the previous evening's performance. The ushers told of God knows what, among other things that after the conclusion of the famous S-ants, some female citizens went running around in the street looking quite indecent, and so on in the same vein. The modest and quiet Vasily Stepanovich merely blinked his eyes, listening to the tall tales of these wonders, and decidedly did not know what to undertake, and yet something had to be undertaken, and precisely by him, because he now turned out to be the senior member of the whole variety team. By 10 o'clock the line of people desiring tickets had swelled so much that rumor of it reached the police, and with astonishing swiftness detachments were sent, both on foot and mounted, to bring this line into some sort of order. However, in itself even an orderly snake a half-mile long presented a great temptation, and caused utter amazement in the citizens on Sadovaya. That was outside, but inside the variety things were also none too great. Early in the morning the telephones began to ring and went on ringing without interruption in Likodaev's office, in Rimsky's office, at the bookkeeper's, in the box office, and in Varanyuka's office. Vasily Stepanovich at first made some answer, the box office girl also answered, the ushers mumbled something into the telephones, but then they stopped altogether, because to questions of where Likodaev, Varanyuka and Rimsky were, there was decidedly no answer. At first they tried to get off by saying, Likodaev's at home, but the reply to this was that they had called him at home, and at home they said Likodaev was at the variety. An agitated lady called, started asking for Rimsky, was advised to call his wife, to which the receiver, sobbing, answered that she was his wife and that Rimsky was nowhere to be found. Some sort of nonsense was beginning. The cleaning woman had already told everybody that when she came to the fine director's office to clean, she saw the door wide open, the lights on, the window to the garden broken, the armchair lying on the floor, and no one in the office. Shortly after 10 o'clock, Madame Rimsky burst into the variety. She was sobbing and wringing her hands. Vasily Stepanovich was utterly at a loss and did not know how to counsel her. Then at 10:30 came the police. Their first and perfectly reasonable question was, "What's going on here, citizens? What's this all about?" The team stepped back, bringing forward the pale and agitated Vasily Stepanovich. He had to call things by their names and confess that the administration of the variety in the persons of the director, the fine director and the administrator had vanished and no one knew where, that the master of ceremonies had been taken to a psychiatric hospital after yesterday's séance, and that, to put it briefly, this séance yesterday had frankly been a scandalous séance. The sobbing Madame Rimsky, having been calmed down as much as possible, was sent home, and the greatest interest was shown in the cleaning woman's story about the shape in which the fine director's office had been found. The staff were asked to go to their places and get busy, and in a short while the investigation appeared in the Variety building, accompanied by a sharp-eared, muscular, ash-colored dog with extremely intelligent eyes. The whisper spread at once among the Variety staff that the dog was none other than the famous Ace of Diamonds. And so it was. His behavior amazed them all. The moment Ace of Diamonds ran into the fine director's office, he growled, baring his monstrous yellow fangs, then crouched on his belly and, with some sort of look of anguish and at the same time of rage in his eyes, crawled towards the broken window. Overcoming his fear, he suddenly jumped up on the windowsill and, throwing back his sharp muzzle, howled savagely and angrily. He refused to leave the window, growled and twitched, and kept trying to jump out. The dog was taken from the office and turned loose in the lobby, whence he walked out through the main entrance to the street and led those following him to the cab stand. There he lost the trail he had been pursuing. After that, Ace of Diamonds was taken away. The investigation settled in Varenyuka's office, where they began summoning in turn all the Variety staff members who had witnessed yesterday's events during the séance. It must be said that the investigation had at every step to overcome unforeseen difficulties. The thread kept snapping off in their hands. There had been posters, right? Right. But during the night they had been pasted over with new ones, and now, strike me dead, there wasn't a single one to be found. And the magician himself, where had he come from? Ah, who knows? But there was a contract drawn up with him? I suppose so, the agitated Vasily Stepanovich replied. And if one was drawn up, it had to go through bookkeeping?